everybody. So, everybody sat down for session 1 of the new campaign, and the DM showed up with a packet, a literal packet of home rules and all this homebrew shit that he had done, like new classes, everything. It was kind of nuts, and everyone asked him, like, it's not session 0. Why was this not brought up before? And then he was like, oh, well, I had seen some stuff on the internet, and now here they are. We're going to use these. And then everyone started arguing, and then at some point, the bard got punched. I really don't know what he said or did, but he's in the corner crying, so I guess session's canceled.
I just, the mental image of like a half-inch thick stack of paper with homebrew rules just really sent me.
That's kind of where my brain was at. I'm not
like, I'm seeing like a fucking, like a test packet over spring break level of bullshit.
Bro, okay. When teachers did that shit in high school, that sent me on another level of rage. Like, oh, we know you guys are going away for spring break. You're going to go see your family. Well, here's just a small packet. It's like 30 pages.
Yep.
I remember, ma'am, you can chup them away.
I remember one year, my French teacher did that to me. And being the person who never procrastinates ever, I was like, all right, we're going on break. I don't really want to do any of this over break. So I did it all. She gave it to us like 2 or 3 days before we started break on like Wednesday or Thursday or whatever. I did that whole shit in one night. And then I came back the next day. I was like, can I hand it in to you? And she's like, you did it already? I was like, yeah, I did it all last night. And she was like, you're supposed to do it like over break. I was like, I didn't want to.
I had a similar thing.
She didn't know how to react to that one.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of homunculus behavior, but fair enough. I respect not wanting to do your homework.
I did do the homework. Just
but I know that you didn't want to do it over break. Just being like, fuck it, I'm getting out of the way.
Yeah.
So I did the opposite of that, which is to say, it was spring break, my freshman year. I had an essay due the day I got back from vacation for social studies. I remember this very distinctly. And I was like, yep, I'm not doing that. So I started that essay in the class that it was due. And I used the very fair excuse that everybody was using their printers to print out all their homework from vacation, so I would get it to her by the end of the day. I finished that essay in class because I spent the day or two before class started, I practiced texting without looking at my keyboard. And it got to a point where I could make pretty solidly full sentences with a very few typos. So I just practiced that like an animal the night before and typed the whole essay with my left hand as I was writing my notes in my right hand and looking at the screen, like the smartboard. And I finished that essay.
Okay, pause. Pause. You cannot tell me I had homunculus behavior. You wrote a whole ass essay without looking at your fucking screen in class.
Yeah.
And I'm the homunculus?
Yeah. Well, no, so here's the beauty of it. I was like, can I get you the essay by, because it was the last, our class, my school did their periods in blocks, right? So every class was 2 periods. So I was like, I know you have office hours till 4 o'clock today. Can I just get it to you by the end of the day? And she was like, yeah, get it to me before 3:30. So I went down to the library, quickly opened up my essay, like fixed all the typos that I missed.
Proofread it basically?
Proofread it basically, and then printed it out and handed it in. And she was like, oh, you did do it. And I was like, yeah, look, I told you. She literally was like, I really thought that you were just going to leave and I was going to give you a 0. I was like, I would never do that.
Yo, you got no right calling me a homunculus with that. Get the fuck out of here.
I admitted that. I admitted that I was like, maybe I shouldn't say that because I am just as much of an animal.
That is unhinged. That is a similar energy to Sam, male Sam, fucking doing like every single lab he missed in the last 2 or 3 days of school before the end of the year. because he just refused to do he would do the labs for physics or whatever in class. Like he'd do the part in class, but would never do the homework bit. So he just had none of them completed. He did them all in like 2 days. Him and my other friend, Tom. Fucking monkey behavior.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Took them hours.
I didn't not do that.
Took them hours, dude.
But I have a really good memory. So we had to like outline and annotate the textbooks that we got in our classes. And basically what I would do is I would just write the first sentence of every paragraph. I didn't pay any thought to what I was reading, just like what I was writing. I was writing it down. But I could memorize full chapters of the homework, like in broad strokes. So the same social ed teacher would read my homework and be like, I know clearly what you did. You're not fucking clever. She was one day she was like, I will give you full credit if you can tell me one line from the reading last night. And I damn near recited like I distinctly remember this was on the French Revolution. And I basically recited like 2 full pages of the textbook to her from memory. And her jaw slowly opening and going slack jaw over the course of like 4 minutes. And then she basically was like, just get out. You can take your credit. Just leave. Leave me. Like,
just leave.
Do business, ma'am.
This goes back to my statement. Kids do wild and shit.
Look, the amount of shit that I pulled in my high school years
Kids
to
do
not
wild
do homework.
And shit. Oh my god. I can't.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Like I only ever read half of every book we had to read, like exactly half of it, and I still aced every essay and test. I read like Book Thief is 555 pages exactly. Don't remember Squire, I remember that. I read 225.
That's so specific.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're kind of talking about doing homework today, sort of.
We are, yeah.
In a roundabout way.
So, Matt, to dear listeners, Matt showed us a video earlier this week by the Dungeon Dudes, I believe.
Yes,
and it was about
Dudes.
whether or not you should ban multi-classing in your game. And I watched the video, and I disagree with it, pretty much most of it.
Isaiah got spicy over it.
I did. Although, in their defense, they also pretty much admitted, like, I don't know if any of these arguments even swayed us. And I was like, okay. All right, now, good to know. But then that got me thinking, right? What stuff, and they sort of do this across the board. They talk about, like, what homebrews you should add or how to homebrew your game to make it more enjoyable or more efficient or
yes, they are
circumvent some bullshittery.
They are very they're big on the homebrewing for sure.
Yeah. So that got me thinking, right? Like Baby's first GM, you can pretty much guarantee across the board most of the time has looked at 5e or other rule systems and been like, I don't like this rule, I'm going to change it. Which means that they are effectively homebrewing, right? Home ruling is homebrewing. So that got me thinking, when should you homebrew something? And how do you homebrew something? What is a methodology that you could follow reasonably to help you homebrew? Because, like I said, most GMs will, if you have any critical thinking or critical reading skills, which if you're a GM, you kind of need to.
In some capacity.
When do you look at a rule set and go, okay, I kind of want to change some things? And how much is too much? Because there is too much, and we will get to that. But before we do get into it, Josh, do the thing.
What? Hit the follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. You caught me off guard. I was in listening mode. I wasn't in thinking mode.
Actually stun locked.
Yeah, no, it caught me very off guard on that one. failed the perception check.
Magical. I love that. Okay. So, for the introduction, if we want to talk about homebrewing, we should set some history down for the practice of it, so to speak. And you kind of, to understand how or when to do a thing, you kind of have to intrinsically understand what that thing is. In this instance, we're talking about homebrew. Some fun little trivia I put together. Homebrewing as a term, as you can probably assume, again, with some pretty basic English literacy skills. The term originally was used to describe brewing a specialty beverage, such as alcohol or coffee at home, typically as a hobby. In the instance of tabletop, or any other iteration of the use of homebrew in modern slang, it's the act of creating new content or altering existing content in a creative way due to a desire for personalization or tweaking it towards one's own taste.
You know, I just had a kind of a weird thought from you saying that. How did the phrase brewing, how did brewing get associated with tabletop games? That is kind of a weird, I've never considered the fact that like brewery, like brewing is referring to making drinks. How did that get associated with tabletop?
I don't know. It seems to me, right? It comes about from a hobbyistic thing. Homebrewing is sort of naturally a hobby to do, right? Like, oh, I made my own beer or mead, or I make my own coffee blends.
Yeah.
So it's just a natural alteration of things that you already enjoy to better suit your tastes. I feel like it just seems like a natural progression to ad hoc that word onto a different practice.
I guess it just feels weird to associate food with tabletop. Like, I don't see the immediate connection there, you know?
Yeah, no, that is fair. It's definitely fair. And to sort of further elaborate, in terms of the hobby of tabletop, so to speak, homebrewing is primarily done as a means to fill a gap in a specific niche of content or to alter it due to a perceived deficiency. Basically, in layman's terms, it's what we in the gamer field refer to as modding, like insert radical guitar solo or whatever. Do you remember like back when you were a kid and like you saw someone mod a video game for the first time and it like shattered your perception?
No, because I think the first time I really interacted with game modding, I didn't realize that that's what it was, because my first big interaction with modding was Warcraft 3 custom maps, and I sort of thought they were just part of the game. So I don't know. I didn't realize that it was an idea of modding, and so it was kind of a smooth transition from that to, oh, you can fuck with the game files. Which, hilariously enough, to this day, despite knowing quite a bit about the steps and quite a decent amount of the aspects of game design, including how to actually do some of it, I still don't really know how modding works 100%. But that's because I'm not a programmer. So
Yeah, fair enough. I would say pretty much the same. It's like, I know it does work. I know it has to do with inserting files and replacing them, but how and why, I'm not entirely sure. Though that kind of goes into like system dev kits and the like weird black box that those typically are.
Yes, true. Yeah, dev kit. Yeah.
I don't know. So I remember telling this story. I think I told this story last session about the project that I worked for, that the guys were trying to make a sequel to Sly Cooper and like sell it despite not having
this up, yes,
licensing. Yeah. So they had access to a PS2 dev kit, which was impressive that they got their hands on one. But the insistence that we use the PlayStation 2 dev kit to make a modern game was crazy to me, to the point of it being like idiotic.
Yeah, wait, hold on. I have two questions. They had access to a PS2 dev kit, so they wanted to make a PS2 version of the game? Was that the logic there?
I don't know. I genuinely do not know if there was a logic to half of this shit.
Okay, because I was going to say, I was like, this was all occurring when the PS4 was the current system, so that's questionable.
Yeah.
Follow-up question, how the fuck did they get access to a PS2 dev kit?
I have no idea.
All right.
You probably could find them online nowadays. It's been that long, but like...
I guess?
Yeah, the specifics of which, so much about that game was like this super hush-hush DEFCON 5 level shit. It was so goofy.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know.
All right. That's interesting.
We keep fucking tangenting so hard.
We haven't actually got to what we were trying to get to here, have we?
No. One last thing for the intro. Again, back into the specifics of homebrewing and what it is. Like I said earlier, it can pretty much take the shape of anything in regards to altering some fundamental aspect of a rule set in the hobby. It can be anything from home ruling at an individual table, creating bespoke content like classes and equipment and enemies, and on the high end of things, just making a new game from an old one, just taking D&D and making hellscapes, for example. That's homebrew.
Well, it starts as homebrew. I think once you decide to turn it into like a proper monetized published thing, it stops being homebrew and becomes a different thing, but it starts as homebrew for sure.
It sort of, I think it depends. If you get to a point where you're making an entirely new game, then yes, I would say it's homebrew. But like something that like Hellscapes is, and I would go as far as to say things like the Blades clones. I can't remember what they're called. The Forged in the Dark clones. I would still call those homebrew on a technicality.
I would not call them homebrew because they're sold. They're published and sold properly.
Well, you can publish, like, creating a module for D&D is still homebrew, right?
Well, what I'm saying is it starts as homebrew but becomes a proper project when you start to publish and sell it. Is what I mean. Like, there's a transition point from, like, homebrew to me implies a degree of casual, I'm not trying to do anything crazy with this, maybe I'll post it, maybe I won't. But once you sell it and have proper publishing and stuff for it, you've gone past homebrew and have gone into a different realm. You're just straight up game designing at that point. You know what I mean? Like
I see where you're coming from.
Another way I could phrase it, the home part of homebrew is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. I don't know that I 100% agree, mainly because my notes involve this later on, so it'd be odd to massively depart from my thesis, but
well,
we will discuss it when it comes up. Now, on to the basics. So, sits down like Captain America. You want a homebrew. Where do you start? First, great question. First things first, get a game you really like. Now, read it. Sorry, Matt. Done? Cool, sick. All right, now play it for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back. Okay, cool. So, all right. In all seriousness,
play it for a while. Just reiterate that one a little bit.
Yeah, play it for a while. Do not mess with rules yet. I'm watching you.
Yeah, like, I don't want to be that guy and say you have to do anything a certain kind of way, but I feel like there is a certain degree of obligation to play the game for a little while before you really start chopping it up.
Completely agree. And to be clear, what we're talking about today is not the definitive, you need to do this if you want to homebrew, but
you should.
If you want a better understand, fair. If you want a better understanding of homebrewing as a concept, I feel as though I've put together a pretty comprehensive idea for it.
We're not speaking from a place of authority, but we are speaking from a
place of superiority.
A spirit of authority. I don't know. Like, what I mean is, we don't necessarily have the credentials to say, oh, I've designed a game so X, Y, and Z, but we're speaking from a place of lots of time in the oven and thinking about it and looking at how other people do it and just generally thinking way too much about this fucking hobby that we interact with.
There's a lot of that. And to be fair, we talked about this before. We've got damn near 2 decades of experience between us. I feel like we know a thing or two and seen a thing or two.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time also when I speak on game design things, I'm not even really giving 100% my own opinions so much as I am filtering other opinions I have heard from game designers through my own lens. Like, I'm not generally giving super hot takes that come wholly from myself, give or take maybe a few exceptions.
Interesting. So with that in mind, I'm very curious to see what you think of my thesis in this. Now,
all right.
I think the most important thing that
but like, seriously, play the game first.
No, yes, absolutely play the game first.
I really want to hammer that one home.
Amount.
Fucking play the game first. Like, I know that urge to immediately start changing things, but please try to play the game first.
Yes. And that leads into this point. No single ruling or mechanic exists in a vacuum. Creating a tabletop RPG and creating a rule systems in general, are incredibly complex and are built from the ground up. Meaning that every mechanic, for the most part, affects and is affected by others that are just like it. And disrupting one will disrupt a bunch of them. So if you start hacking at shit willy-nilly, you're going to find out quick, fast, and in a hurry that you goofed up. And a lot of shit doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, there are times where that's not 100% true, but you're generally better off erring on the side of assuming that is true all the time.
Yes, completely.
Because there can be moments of entirely self-contained mechanic that just doesn't really mess with anything. It can happen, but not that often. It's better to assume that's not the case.
Yes. To this end, if you decide to do any homebrewing, understand that not only are those rules not existing in a vacuum and rely upon one another, they were probably made for a reason. So, once again, if you choose to hack shit off, you're going to experience knock-on effects. And this goes everything from like really small things that you might not really think about, and you will have to do some like testing for any homebrew you do, clearly, right? You are effectively beta testing content in a weird way, if you think about it a certain kind of way.
I mean, you effectively are, yeah.
Yeah. You'll have to really run it yourself to really know if it works or not. If you can write the rules down, but if they haven't been stress tested, then they don't hold any water in any practical way. And with this in mind, where do you start? Great question. I'm glad I asked it. Let's use D&D, for example. I think in D&D, it's the metric that we use a lot. King of the Kids. It's the king of the ring. We might as well bring it up. You need to define, and this is all coming from me. This is something that I've thought up, so none of this is official, right? This isn't like coined. But you need to define what the core rules are in the given system. In this instance, like I said, since we're using D&D, for the sake of argument, we're going to say that your core rules, in ascending order, are character attributes, skill checks, saving throws, and combat. What that basically means is that any change that you make to character attributes and stats, those will affect every mechanic down the line leading to combat. So changing your attributes will change the way that skill checks work. Changing the way that skill checks work will change the way that saving throws work. And those things together will dramatically shift the way that combat feels. If you want to see this in practice, and something that a lot of early homebrewers do, look no further in D&D than attack rolls. Bonuses to attack rolls, pretty universally with 5e and 5th edition, as we understand them, max out at a +3. Right?
Wait, what maxes out at +3? Wait a minute, what?
The stat bonuses you get from things like magic items or specialty gear.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Those max out at a +3. That is a highest level of floating modifier that any specialty gear in 5e will give you. And the reason why that is because that statting system was created in tandem with character stats, enemy stats, and then because of that, it will walk a sort of delicate, if not very imperfect balance. And if you, and a lot of people have, and I know I've done it, you will quickly realize that if you start pushing past that +3 modifier into +4, +5, the math just sort of breaks down because you have effectively shattered that delicate balance. And it might not seem like a lot because it's only at this point, a +2.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those things it's funny because people will often say, oh, bounded accuracy in 5e is kind of bullshit. And I know what they mean, but at the end of the day, you still need to look at the fact that +3 bonus on magic items caps out there for a reason. It's because the designers wanted to keep the math numbers within a certain reasonable range. And the desire to break it, I understand, but that once you break it, you start to get into that realm of game feel, or as I often call it, mouth feel, where could the game still function if you give the paladin a +5 longsword or whatever? Yes. But the mouthfeel is going to get fucked with. And the designers expect a certain kind of mouthfeel. And if you're pushing past it, something is going to happen. Now, you might add a little salt to your chocolate cake and think it tastes fabulous. And that's fine. But be aware that adding salt to the cake is going to change the flavor.
Yes, and I think
be prepared for that.
Because inevitably someone is going to say this. Oh, well, I put a +5 weapon in the game because I wanted it to feel super strong and like unstoppable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you doing it purposefully is an exception that's proving the rule. You know that it's going to be fuck-bustedly strong.
Yeah.
You did that on purpose.
Yes. You know it's going to feel unique because you know it doesn't normally go beyond those bounds. And you may not even 100% know why it's going to feel unique, but you've played the game enough to know that it is going to do that. It's one of those things. There's a lot of people that play games, and tabletop and video game included, where they know that if you do X, Y, or Z thing, it will cause the game to feel different. But they might not know why, but they can still identify that it will matter. And sometimes in the homebrew world, that's all you really need. You know, you might not know the math well enough to grasp fully why the +5 longsword is going to really fuck with things, but you know it is going to mess with the vibe. And that might be enough. Because at the end of the day, you know, you don't need to play test your at the table homebrew. It's your table. Do whatever the fuck you want, right? Which is that's the real superpower of any homebrewing. It's your table. Do whatever the hell you want. You don't need to play test it.
Yes, and to clarify, that does not counteract the earlier statement of if you homebrew something, you're gonna have to use it to know if it works or not. Not necessarily that you have to play test it professionally.
Yes, you need to use it to know if it works, but you don't need to make sure that it works in every scenario. You just need to make sure it works for your table.
Yes.
For example, if you make this ridiculous paladin weapon for your game that works with the party composition that your campaign has, for your table, that's fine because you know what party composition your table has. if you were to publish that weapon, you would have to take into account every possible party combination that could exist, as opposed to your campaign where you're only dealing with the one that does currently exist. It's that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Now that we have the idea of core rules established, we can sort of move on to the natural next step is you basically need a good enough fundamental understanding of whatever system you're altering to know what the rules that you are changing will immediately affect, right? So going back to the attack rolls thing, if you give that +5, things like AC are going to need to shift dramatically to compensate if you are trying to maintain balance. And if not, well, the opposite, right? You're going to keep things the way they are. And literally what we just said, right? There's no way of knowing just how much will be affected, pretty much no matter what, right? Like unless you're like our buddy Sam, and you have a massive Excel spreadsheet that tells you exactly which rules go with which, and I'm sure that someone has done it.
Many people.
Unless you're that guy, you're not going to know. And the ramifications of any homebrew are really only going to make themselves known through extensive play. And if you don't want to do that, fuck it. That's kind of up to you. Just saying that's what you should prepare yourself for if you really, really want to hammer it home.
Yes.
And thirdly, it's worth noting that the main things that are going to help you with homebrewing are experience and reading. Right? Like, we really can't stress this enough. You are not going to be Chris Perkins when you first start running anything, let alone D&D. Every GM feels like when they start homebrewing some shit, they are cooking. I guarantee you, you are not cooking.
I mean, there's always a chance that you cook really hard, but assume you're not.
Assume you're not. More often than not, you will not be. And like, I brought this story up before. Even if you do know a system well, if you haven't done reading into other systems, if you haven't really had that information and that like experience that comes with
that lesson, that teaching.
Yeah, that sort of give you the idea of designing outside of your really small think space. It hinders you hard. And like I've brought this up before. This is, a little story-ish tangent. I used to talk to a couple guys who were super into D&D and quite literally refused to play anything else. And I would say, like we'd be talking in like a Discord server or whatever, and they'd be like, I'm thinking about this way to make it so that like you can retroactively do things when they come up. And I was like, well, what do you mean? They were like, like, let's say you have to make a check. If you don't have an item, you can just say that you have that item. And I was like, you mean flashbacks? Like that's literally flashbacks from Blades in the Dark.
Yeah.
And they were like, and you go, yeah, well, in this book, they have there's a whole thing around like flashbacking because you're doing heists. You could take that and you could insert it into whatever you're trying to do because it's like really robust and it works really well. And the actual response I got was, nah, I'm just going to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like, it goes beyond like stubbornness into like hubristic. Like, nah, I'm just going to, I think my way is going to be better. It's not. It might be, but
it's also just kind of,
it's not.
It's also just silly because if you want to get into that space where you start hacking and changing games a lot, then you should read other games to get an understanding of how other people have tried to do it to widen your breadth of knowledge just generally.
Yes, it is like the most basic. If you want to expand your horizons or expand your ability to create, you need to expand your horizons to encompass more things.
Yeah, well,
so that you have more experiences to draw upon when you create.
It's like, I want to be an author, but I'm only gonna read books from this one author I like. It's like, well, you should read other authors to see how other people handle different situations. You know, like,
yeah, no,
it applies to everything.
It does, yeah. It really is that, like, the people who this is literally what Josh and I talked about last episode, where it's the, like, oh, game creators spend too much time working on their product. They don't have time to play other video games.
Yeah.
That is, if you think about that, if you use two neurons and you rub them together with any level of energy, they're not even real good. If you just put any brain power to it, you would know that doesn't make sense on the fucking faces of it. Like, what?
Again, if you
it's the same thing.
If you just translate that statement to authors don't read books, it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, authors don't read books, directors don't watch movies.
Yeah, like, if you translate it to anything other than video games, it sounds stupid. Like, no one would make that argument for any other subject. The only reason it came up is because LOL video games bad. That's the only reason it was even. That's the only reason that person even what's the word I'm looking for? Even entertained the thought.
You know what? I you know why I love that line in particular?
Why?
Because if you put any fucking brain power into this,
yeah,
how the fuck do you think cliches start?
Yeah, or tropes.
How do you think genres, tropes, cliches? Yeah. How does any of that happen? Do you think people just magically come to the same conclusion that often with that level of consistency? Because what you're describing basically would imply, like, the Persona style fucking collective unconscious.
Well, parallel thinking is a thing to a point, but it can't account for tropes in the way that they exist. Like, parallel thinking exists, but the prevalence of a lot of tropes and the fact that so many of them are executed so similarly, it can't account for all of that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, yes, can these things be developed miraculously? Yes,
they can. Yeah,
but with the regularity that we get it,
yeah,
clearly fucking not.
And then if you move beyond the scope of a trope or a cliche, and you move into the realm of homage, an homage can only exist if you are pulling from a different source material, you know?
Right.
You can't make an homage to lightsabers in your sci-fi series if you haven't seen or interacted with Star Wars in some capacity. Right? Like, you know, it's a thing.
It really
and tabletop is same idea. The amount of games these days that have a advantage disadvantage mechanic as either a homage or intentional rip from 5e is, I mean, there's a ton of them. Right?
Yeah, no, there's a ton, and they all iterate differently. So if you can look at them and go, oh, well,
not all, but a lot of them do.
Well, a lot of them do, yeah. Like Lancer, perfect example. Lancer has an advantage disadvantage. It's the accuracy and difficulty system. It works fundamentally the same way. The numbers are different, right. Whereas rather than letting you roll twice, you get you can add a number of d6 and then you roll those in a pool and take the highest number. That is effectively just advantage disadvantage. It's more limited. It does not allow for the same level of like crazy swinginess that advantage and disadvantage do.
It's a reworked version. It is still
fundamentally the same idea. Honestly, I genuinely think more people should look at that rule system from Lancer who do not like advantage and disadvantage. Or things like
or look at Shadow of the Demon Lord's Banes and Boons.
Yeah, like I feel like if they changed flanking, if they made that like a full-on core rulebook rule, and just did, you can roll a number of and choose whatever die size you want. That doesn't have to be a D6 or D20. But like, let's say you get to add an additional D10 for each person surrounding one enemy. That would feel cool as fuck. And that's really good. Am I cooking right now? Hold on. Because that would absolutely force players to move around, which is one of D&D's biggest fucking problems. It would force dynamic positioning.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'd have to think about it more. This is not the space for me to do the brain juice, but yes, I get what you're saying.
Well, like, I mean, yes, on the face of it, if you're fighting one guy, yeah, you're not going to have any shifts. But assuming that you're not just throwing one dragon at the party per level, it will force characters to move around, and they are going to take turns, ganking one guy in particular. in the way that you do in Fire Emblem, but you as the GM can account for that and control it, because if you, like, let's say 3 characters gank one dude, well, you can have 4 of your bad guys gank one player who's ganking your one dude, and now the roles have been reversed. It's the Tom and Jerry bit where it's like Tom about to kick Jerry's ass, and then Spike shows up behind Tom about to kick his ass. I'm gonna try this. I'm actually gonna try this in the next 5e thing I run, because this seems like a really good idea.
So you'll get back to us in 4 years?
Correct. Yeah. I'm gonna write this down somewhere. I'm gonna be like Sam. I'm just gonna write random notes in random notebooks, and then open them up years later and be like, right. Down. Yeah. God, what is it? The explodes into snakes? Question mark?
Yeah, question mark.
Fuck, dude, I'm sorry. I'm really high. This is a good idea. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem with advantage, disadvantage is just how binary it is, right? So a little bit more granularity to it, I think, would help a lot.
Yes, and I love flanking, and I am very sad when people don't put flanking in, but I also understand that flanking is very powerful and might give you too much for what it is, how easy it is to accomplish.
Very powerful, yeah. and also kind of, again, overly binary with the way 5e does it.
Yes. Before I move on to some pitfalls, so to speak, do you have any thoughts on the general design of my thesis, Josh? Thoughts on like the core rules idea and anything like that?
I mean, not any more than the ones I've already given, I don't think.
Fair enough. I just sort of meant in the way that it is, the methodology by which I came to the conclusion.
How do you mean? Like, what do you mean by how you came to the conclusion?
Well, so the idea that, like, if you want to start breaking rules and changing things around, you have to understand where those rules are boiled down to at their lowest level to understand how they will, and how you can extrapolate them shifting things on a wider scale. So again, shifting something with combat will shift how it will force changes to the way that attack rolls are made, which will shift how skill checks are made and saving throws are made potentially, which will shift all the way back down to your skill attributes. And if you change your character attributes, that will shift back up to skills and then saving throws and then combat respectively.
I mean, yeah, I always warn against changing one little rule and thinking it's not going to have a big knock-on effect. I bring that up all the time, so yes. Okay. Yes, we're on the same page. Broadly speaking.
All right. So yeah, I mean, we can hit the pitfalls. There's not that many, but now that we've spoken about when to and how to in regards to homebrew, it's worth discussing what to look out for, I guess. Because as you can assume, and as we've said, there's a lot of ways to fuck it up. And I'm speaking from experience. I have homebrewed the shit out of something until it doesn't work anymore. And I have played in games that homebrewed till the cows came home and it didn't work. Really,
and homebrewed with no regard, just went buck wild.
Yes, buck wild to force the game to
bow to your will.
Yes, to embody a theme or mood or just like mechanical mouthfeel that it was not intended to. I also brought up last session the like, I want to play 5e with almost no magic and you can't play casters till level 10.
Yeah.
You're going to learn really quickly that shit, that 5e will fight you to the point of breaking because it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't want to work that way.
Yeah, it was not intended to, it doesn't want to, and frankly, it won't.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, fucking go nuts, I guess.
I mean, at the end of the day, that is kind of the response. I don't know, go nuts if you really want. We can't stop you.
No, we can't. We will tell stories about your broken
downfall.
attempts. Yeah, but we won't stop you. And we kind of talked about the knock-on effects thing, so we're not going to bring that up again. The big thing that I would recommend you watch out for any new GM, and even like intermediate GMs who want to start changing things around and they have the know-how, it's rules bloat.
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing.
Putting more rules on top of the already thick amount of rules.
Yeah. TTRPGs are rules of books. That is the point. There is a lot of rules to understand.
Rules of books?
Books of rules. You know what I mean? They are books of rules.
Books of rules, yes.
Pages and pages and pages of rules and stipulations and exceptions and explanations.
Yes.
That is how they work. And that's kind of the point. So if you tack on scores of new rules, potentially ripped from other games or handwritten down on fucking a million handouts in your VTT of choice.
Or napkin mathed out.
Yeah. You cannot reasonably expect your players to do that much outside homework on top of the homework they already have to do. If you take the initiative from Fabula Ultima and the advantage and disadvantage, the accuracy difficulty from Lancer and the class rules from Shadow of the Demon Lord and the magic system from Warhammer, you're telling your players, hey, you got to read like 5 or 6 books or read pages worth of other rule systems.
You done made a real Frankenstein of a game. You doing all that.
Yeah. And then you're going to have to, you as the GM are going to have to figure out how all that shit works and then try to convert it, which is, that sounds like so much work to the point of it being like soul shattering.
I mean, it probably
want to think about.
It probably won't work.
No, I mean, it probably won't work, but that doesn't mean that people aren't going to try.
Yeah, of course.
There are so many examples of this that I've played in that like it's crazy. And I'm not going to bring up my first campaign again on this topic because I mean that is the biggest version of that, but there's plenty other good ones I can think of. What are the games I was playing in the quote the one that just exploded on the final stretch?
Uh-huh.
The GM really liked mini games.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of them involved gambling, so he literally gave us real peripheral things to use in the game.
Okay.
And it was like a little tile bag, specialty kinds of dice, and then would tack on extra systems, not even necessarily from games, but from like actual board game stuff.
Okay.
And then it gets to a point where you're like, well, why could we not just settle this in the game? Like, it's cool that you're trying to make this an interactive thing, but it is getting kind of jank.
It gets obnoxious at a certain point.
Yeah, it's like, oh, who has the tile bag? Oh, someone forgot to bring it. Does that mean that we can't pull from the tile bag, the thing that we have mechanically in game, to get a special like handout from God? Like, that's just a weird thing to deal with, right?
Yeah, well, even if you have everything all the time and everybody's on board and ready to go, it still is gonna have a pause in, like, no matter how well you execute it, there's still gonna be a pause and a break in what you're currently doing where you shift over to the different thing, which is not inherently a problem, but if you go from playing a tabletop D&D situation to now we're playing Pie Show, depending on how big of the jump it is, it can really fuck with the game feel. And when I say game feel, I mean, not even game feel is the wrong word. It can fuck with the group dynamic of the situation where all of a sudden everybody's like, okay, now we're playing dominoes. And now my brain's in domino mode. Oh, we have to go back to playing D&D. I was kind of enjoying domino mode, or I was enjoying D&D. I don't want to play dominoes. Like,
this was a real thing. So in not that campaign, but the one that I guessed it in that I wasn't a permanent player in.
Right.
One of the challenges was like actually play chess.
Right, which can be fun sometimes, but you have to account for the break in the flow and whether you're okay with that or you don't want it to work that way. You have to think about it. Like, it can be done. I'm not saying you can't do it at all, but there has to be consideration there.
Right. To be clear, I'm not saying that it can't be done either, because I'm not going to lie. If I was playing in a tabletop game and one of the things was play poker, I mean, I fucking love poker.
Right.
I will play poker, but it will be an odd transition. And the thing that you see, even in actual like published tabletop games, is that causes a break in the narrative or the flow of the narrative.
Yeah.
If you look at your Shadowruns or your Cyberpunks, like tapping into the net or whatever, hacking, doing your like stuff, cool Decker thing, you're just playing a different game. Like, you are fundamentally playing a second game inside the game that no one else in the game is playing, that only you can interact with. And this is not always the case, right? Maybe other characters can interact with this thing as well. But you now are just on a different wavelength than the rest of the players, and those players could very easily get bored while you're in the Matrix for an hour and a half of real time.
Yeah. It's a delicate tool you have to consider. And I think the best way, if you want to do something like that, is just make sure that the moment feels really appropriate and right for that kind of a thing. So, for example, there was the Dragonlance board game that came out shortly after the adventure, and I think, if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this 100%, but I think I remember the designers saying, oh, we would love to see people use this board game in their campaigns. And I think that is a fun idea, but you can't be busting out the board game every other session, because the board game is essentially it's like a mass combat simulator. It's like a war simulator type of thing. Mm-hmm. You can bust that out, but you got to bust it out in the sessions where it feels earned and like it's worth it and like it's going to be cool, because we got to the climax of the adventure and now there's this big battle that's going to happen or something like that. The busting out the chessboard, similar kind of thing. You could do it, but it helps if it feels worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, if your characters go to a casino in Waterdeep or whatever, and you actually brought like a little mini roulette table to spin or some cards to play some poker, assuming all the players are down for it,
and
you
assuming
got, like, 2 players who just don't fucking care about poker.
And also, if you're going to do that, maybe the whole session is just that.
Right. You can't just, this is you when you're playing Fallout New Vegas and you're just trying to do a fucking side quest and a character walks up and is like, do you want to play Caravan?
Yeah.
I'm going to blast you with my big iron if you bother me.
Right. It is literally, it's the Yakuza thing where you're really invested in the main storyline and then you accidentally start a subquest where you have to go to the batting cages and you really just are not in the mood to be doing batting cages shit right now because you want to continue the main story because you're invested in the fact that Kiryu's been framed for murder. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's a video game, so you have a choice. You could just say fuck off, obviously.
So you know what's funny? One of our Moogie's boyfriend was when he played Witcher 3, got really into Gwent.
Yeah, I mean, it happens for sure.
It like got to the point where he downloaded the Gwent like standalone game.
Yeah.
And played the fuck out of that, and then Moogie bought him like actual Gwent cards to play with.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't happen. It's just funny that he got really deep in the Gwent rabbit hole for like 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen for sure. And who knows, you may have a poker session that occurs in your game, and then you get one of your players really fucking into poker.
I would love that. I was thinking about this. I was like, in our Fabula game, like, should I learn the basics of playing shogi?
Yo,
or Go?
Brother, chill.
And I was like, I could, but I know for a fact that Josh is not going to learn how to play shogi or Go. So like, it would just sort of be a waste.
Slim chance. Slim chance.
Do you know fucking Ant and Brett learned to play shogi a while back? Just cuz.
Okay.
This was like 2 years ago. They were on Tabletop Simulator and they were like, do you want to play shogi? And I literally was like, wait up. How do you know how to fucking play that game?
That's very random, but all right. Yeah, sure.
It was very funny.
Fucking you do you, I guess.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, like, I'm not gonna say that it's dumb that they learned to play shogi. Honestly, it's that's like kind of based. I'm not even gonna lie. It was just kind of wild to me. Let's see. I gotta think. You know what's funny? In my notes, I was like, let's see. What did I say again? Oh yeah, you can get to a point where you have so many like, your rules bloat gets so bad that your only like real means is to start either throwing all of the homebrew shit away, which you never want, or going in like a surgeon and plucking out the things you don't need. And I wrote my rules. You might want some cool revamps for like a sick new equipment system, but you may not want the hyper complex rules for all the weird BDSM magic items from the Book of Vile Darkness. Just saying. Why did I write that? It was like 2 a.m. I was in a fucking fugue state apparently.
Hey yo.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
Okay. Just checking. Those of you who don't know about the Book of Vile Darkness, you should look that up. It's very funny.
It's very strange.
Who wrote that again? Was that
Oh God.
Hold on, I'm looking this up now.
My brain wants to say maybe Perkins was involved.
Let's see.
Oh, you're gonna get I need the
Monty Cook and Robert J. Schwab.
Oh, Monty Cook and Schwab. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Monty Cook being a big, one of the big main designers from second edition days and then he kind of transitioned into third. Schwab being the guy who later went on to create Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Oh, really? Did he? Okay,
yes,
that's funny.
That's Rob Schwab. Who has a very heavy metal, grim, dark grunge aesthetic that he is a fan of. Robert J. Schwab.
To those of you who don't know what the Book of Vile Darkness is, it is an odd little supplement for 3rd edition and 4th, as I'm now reading here.
No, just 3rd.
No. Another Book of Vile Darkness was published for the 4th edition D&D, December 27th, 2011.
I see.
There was 2 of them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the game included things like weird BDSM magic items.
Yes, sir.
And like weird sacrificial orgies as
Kinky
part of
whips.
One of the missions. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's odd. I love it, but it's so odd.
I like how ballsy it is.
It definitely, yeah. I mean, if you have a for mature audiences only on the front cover, you know you're getting into some shit, my guy.
I'm never touching it, but I like how ballsy it is.
I kind of want to, just to see.
Just to know.
Yeah, it just like, I've never read it in full. I have seen some of the magic items, and you're like,
hey, yo.
That's a dildo. I know what that is. No, you're not. Yeah. You're not slick, Mr. Schwab. You're not.
Yeah.
Anyway. The final point I want to touch on is in very severe versions of this, although not too uncommon, degree of the previous point of when do you have so many rules that the game just sort of stops working, is you can come to the point when you've done so much homebrew that the game you're playing in the way that it is simply just cease to be, and now you have what is essentially a completely different product.
Yeah, you're not playing D&D 5e, you're playing D&D 5e Jimmy Edition, because Jimmy the GM has just hacked the living fucking nuts out of the game.
Should really do some name testing on it, but yeah. Like if you can't take out the magic and combat and loot out of a D&D game and replace it with super complex rules for political intrigue.
And be like, we're playing D&D.
Yeah, or you can't just remove the classes from D&D and just say we're doing a classless system. Congratulations, it's just not D&D anymore. You have essentially a new game.
Yeah, I was about to start an argument for what's the word I'm looking
pedantry.
for? Pedantry, yes. I was about to start an argument for the pedantry of does taking classes out of D&D make it not D&D? That doesn't actually matter, but I could sort of argue that there's a version of D&D that could be classless that's still mostly D&D, but it doesn't really matter.
Yes, I mean, for the sake of this, no, it does not matter that much. I'm just, I'm being kind of hyperbolic.
No, I mean, I get what you mean. I do. I was just, I felt that urge to get into the pedantry for a second, and I was like, this is not worth getting into.
For what it's worth, I am happy that you abstained.
Yeah. I felt the urge though. It was in the back of my mind.
Yeah, and to be clear, this not D&D. It's not actually a problem that it's not D&D.
No, it's not inherently bad.
You don't want it to be.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not inherently bad.
You just you need to understand that you can no longer think about it the way that you would think about D&D.
Yeah,
because the core values of the game and what you get out of the game are different.
It's like you can't go online and make a Reddit post explaining a problem you're having with the game and then explain, oh, we're playing D&D 5e and I'm running into this problem and that problem, but you've hacked the game so much that you're not really playing 5e anymore, but you don't explain that. So people try to give you advice and you go, oh, I already hacked that out. It's like, okay, well, I can't do anything with this nonsense because you're saying you're playing 5e, but really you're not because you've already hacked the living dog shit out of it. Yeah, you just got to be aware of that. It is not inherently a problem.
So it's funny because someone other than us who brought this up on this podcast was Emma, right?
Yeah.
When he was talking about people changing rules around and then him being like trying to be like, oh, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And only for them to explain later that that rule was changed and it like a bunch of other shit was changed with it. He's like, oh, well, that doesn't. Nothing I thought matters now because you've
changed all these other things.
Yeah, you've just sort of fundamentally like, what's the word I was looking for? You've effectively created a paradigm shift. The paradigm has changed. The way you must think about this thing has changed.
You've shuffled everything around, not just one or two things.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go a step farther and say I think people should just be okay with that. I think people should just. If you want a game that's not D&D, embrace that. Don't feel like you need to stick with D&D. Surprise, this was just a read new games thing in disguise all along.
Yeah.
It was actually me, Dio.
This is just another example for us to tell you to read other games.
Yeah. Or make games. If you want to be a game designer that goddamn bad, make your own fucking game and then have your players run it for you. They'll be your Q&A or your R&D. It's fine.
It was
People should be okay with that.
It was me, Dio, the RPG drug dealer all over again.
Josh is the guy who comes out of the fucking like alleyway in the black overcoat and does the "What are you buying?" and just fucking opens up books. A trench coat full of books.
Just books hanging from my pockets.
Little little USBs full of PDFs.
You thought it was D&D you were playing, but in fact it was me, Dungeon World.
Speaking of, that is literally how we get shit like Apocalypse World. People go, okay, yes. I like the essence of this thing, but I want it to fit a niche that does not exist. That's Homebrew. So I'm going to take this as a base, and I'm going to remove all the shit that I don't want, and I'm going to insert all the things that I do want, and I'm going to call it a different thing because I know and understand that the thing that I have created is now a fundamentally different thing than what I started with. It's how you got Blades, the Without Number series, Powered by the Apocalypse, Fantasy Flight. Dude, the list goes on.
I mean, you can make an argument that that's essentially how you get every tabletop game because you had D&D and now you have all these other games.
True, yes. Do more of it. More games.
More games. Actually, maybe not more games. I don't know. We got a lot of fucking games already. You got more than I could actually play here.
You do have a lot.
There's plenty. We don't need to. If video games and tabletop games could just put a pause and not develop anything new for a couple of years, that'd be great. We could just catch up on some things, you know?
Impossible, bud.
I know, but man, it'd be awesome.
Yeah. Bro, Solasta 2 coming out. We haven't even beat Solasta 1.
I know.
Are we ever going to get back to that?
I mean, I haven't thought about it in a minute, but we can.
Maybe. Kind of hard to go to Solasta when you have Baldur's Gate, like.
It's true. But I've beaten Baldur's Gate, and I have 2 other playthroughs currently going in Baldur's Gate, so.
Bro, I was just talking to Paladin about this. I do not understand people with 15 Baldur's Gate new games.
Well, I mean, 1 was my main game, 1 I'm playing with a friend, 1 I'm playing with my girlfriend.
No, see, that's fine. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, oh yeah, I just restarted Baldur's Gate 15 times because I want to play as all the different classes.
Yeah, but they're not beating it 15 times. They're playing it for 20 hours 15 times.
That's still a lot to replay the same section of a game.
Right, but the thing about Baldur's Gate is you can drastically change a lot of that stuff.
I don't think it could change enough for me personally to justify it.
You'd be surprised. There's pretty drastic change. I don't know about playthrough number like 6 or 7, but playthroughs number 2, 3, and 4, you can make pretty drastic changes.
Maybe.
I mean, you can kill off entire. I mean, in one of the 2 games I'm doing, half the party is dead because I murdered them. So like, it's pretty.
Like the one you're doing Dark Urge with Lita, right?
Yeah, I'm doing the Dark Urge and I'm committing full on to my Dark Urginess. So fucking Karlak is dead, Gale is dead, Will fucked off, Halsin's dead. Because we murdered Halsin with our own hands. The whole grove is dead. So it's pretty different.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Did you do the Mass Effect Paragon and Renegade runs?
No, and I want to, but it's 3 whole games. I do love Mass Effect, but it's 3 whole games.
Yeah, I couldn't. One of my older brothers did a full 3-game run on both, and I just went no.
I do want to do a full Paragon run because I did a mostly Renegade run the first time around. Although I didn't do 100% Renegade because there were certain choices I just couldn't, such as killing Rex. I was like, I can't. So, you know.
Yeah.
But speaking of Baldur's Gate, I just checked. I have 271 hours in Baldur's Gate.
God damn.
Which is actually not that much compared to some people.
That I'm sure of. I have a buddy. He's actually he just graduated from the army, but he's got more runs in Fallout 4 than I am comfortable counting.
4, brother? 4?
He really likes the base building in 4.
That's a choice.
And to be fair, I do too, but not enough to play the game that much.
Yeah, not that much.
That is that's kind of the end of my notes. Any thoughts? Anything you want to touch on?
I feel like I was mostly giving them as I was going, so I don't think I have anything drastic to add. How did we get on the Baldur's Gate? How did we get here? What day is it? Where are we?
People developing too many games.
Oh yeah.
Not enough time, and then you're bringing up, I definitely don't have enough time to do 15 Baldur's Gate runs.
Yeah. Jokes aside, if you feel like there's an unserved niche, then yeah, just make a new game, because at a certain point, if you start hacking the game, if you start hacking a game to the point where like over half the game is unrecognizable as the original product, at that point, just make your own game. It's probably easier. Like,
it's easier, and you will ultimately most likely have a better time designing it.
Yeah, just
because
learn.
You're custom tailoring it to what you want.
Yeah, you probably will have a better time designing it, and learn when to cut your losses, because at some point, trying to fiddle with an existing thing is probably not worth the mental effort that you're putting into it.
Yeah.
And in terms of how do you know what that cutoff point is? It's just vibes, bruh. It's just vibes, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you will find that thing just through natural play.
You'll feel it.
You will basically get to a point where, if we were talking about combat before, if you figured out the fundamental dice system for combat, and then you went, oh, well, what happens if characters are on separate elevations or separate terrains, like a la Fire Emblem, like if you're in trees, then you have like a plus to dodge or whatever. And then you go, okay, well, I've done that. Now, what happens if characters are unawares and you get like the flat-footed stuff? It gets to a point where you've just sort of covered enough bases that you get to such niche scenarios that it's not worth thinking about. Like, how often are your characters going to be fighting on the mast of a ship in a maelstrom with a giant whirlpool created by an angry pagan deity fighting Davy Jones? How often is that going to happen? Probably not a lot. So I don't think it's worth thinking about that.
Not that many times. Not that often.
No.
And also in terms of when do you bite the bullet on really starting to hack the game that you are playing? It's just vibes, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on
it is a degree of vibes.
You want that thing to be.
Like,
if you want D&D but pirates, you don't have to do that much hacking. If you want D&D but Phoenix Wright, yeah, you're gonna have to do a little bit of legwork.
Well, I just meant when do you bite the bullet and really start fucking with things? When do you decide to commit to that? Yeah, there isn't wholly an answer. It is to a certain degree on the vibes. But
oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, like when do you decide to really start doing
when
it?
you get there.
Yes. But that being said, again, try to play the game by itself as much as you can, because then when you do get to the point of wanting to hack and you feel those vibes be hitting, you can hack more effectively and probably make something better than you were gonna make before.
That's true.
Unless you're really shit at design, in which case maybe not, but you know, it happens.
I mean, yeah, that could be possible. You could just be so...
You could just suck.
Incredibly ass at design that no matter how much studying in theory you understand, you are just going to be bad at that thing.
Yes, and if that's the case, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Major L's, brother.
That's also, though, not that likely, so you'll probably be fine.
You'll probably be fine, yes. It's... the whole crux of the argument came from watching a Dungeon Dudes video, right? And they were proposing removing an entire chunk of mechanic from 5e. And, Isaiah disagreed with a lot of it, and that's all well and good. But the important thing is they're not proposing something like that lightly and just out of the blue. I mean, they are a little bit, right? They're making a YouTube video, so to a certain degree, are they trying to just drum up a little attention? Yeah, sure. But those two individuals on the Dungeon Dudes YouTube channel, if you do not know who they are, they have done a lot of design around 5e. They have made their own supplement books through Ghostfire Games Publishing and whatnot. They've analyzed and broken the game apart and taken it bit by bit and piece by piece a lot. So they're saying it from this informed position. I'm not saying you need to be on that level of informed position as they are, but have a repository of information, have a grasp on things. And also, the other reason you might want to just play a game as is before you start to really hack and fuck with it, because that urge to hack with the game, you're gonna immediately... It's almost impossible. You'll play 2 sessions of the game and be like, what if I just change this thing or that thing? You're going to have that thought immediately.
It pretty much without fail. It
so
will
fast.
hit you.
So fast. The reason, or part of the reason, to resist is because you might play the game more and realize why that mechanic exists that annoyed you and why it works the way it does, and then it annoys you less. Or you play with it a little more and you realize, oh, it actually doesn't bother me that much. I just didn't like it at first because I didn't fully understand it, or I didn't fully understand how to use it, or I just wasn't comfortable with it. And then you play with it more and you're like, oh, this is actually really fun. That can also happen. So just be open to that design stuff hitting your brain juice and percolating and boiling good, delicious stew in your brain juice. Yeah.
I don't like any of that.
I know.
I don't like it at all.
I know, but I started saying it and I had to commit.
That was the Adventure Time. Let me fester on this real quick. There's no good kind of festering, Finn.
Yes.
It has that energy.
Correct. And also at the end of the day, fuck it, bro. If it's your table, do whatever the fuck you want. That is really, we can't, no one could stop you at the end of the day. But be aware of the consequences. Always be aware of the consequences.
You can make your D&D game with no magic.
You can. Just be aware of the consequences.
Most people aren't going to want to play it, though.
It'll happen. There might even be, and the other thing is, there might be people who say they want to play it, and then they play it and like, brother, this is dog shit.
Yeah, this is just not a good time.
Yeah, they quickly find out like, wait, this actually sucks ass, dude. That can happen. Do with that what you will. It's a delicate balance. I also think people have, I was about to say a distrust, but I don't think a distrust is the right word. People don't, maybe discount is a better word. I think people discount the time and effort and quality of work that a lot of designers put into their games and think that designing a tabletop game is super easy, or even this happens with video games too. Designing a video game is super easy, and they discount the skill of the designers. So they think, well, anyone could do this, so I'm just going to do it. And then they fuck it up and they don't really understand why they fucked it up. And it's because a lot of the time the designers are so skilled, they make it look easy and you think you know, but you really don't actually know. And you have to be careful with that Dunning-Kruger effect, Yeah,
so the point is like, anyone can do it. Anyone can, but they did do it better than you, more than likely than not.
It's a very similar problem. It's like the comedian effect, right? You go and watch a comedian And you're like, well, they're just talking on stage. Anyone could do that. I'm funny when I hang out with my friends or whatever. And so you think you can be a comedian, then you get up there and you just absolutely tank shit like nobody's business. And it's because they're good at it to the point that they make it look easy. But you don't see those hours and hours and hours of fucking up and practicing and writing jokes and rewriting jokes. You don't see all that background work. So they get good enough that they make it look really easy, and then you get this false confidence. Game design is much the same. You only see the finished product of the game. You don't see the 865 rough drafts of the game that existed before it that were fucking trash. So you look at the game and you're like, oh, well, clearly, it's almost like you have this perception when I think a lot of people, when they look at a tabletop game, they have this perception that the version of the game they're looking at is the first draft. Like, they just wrote all this shit down on the first go and it was a great game right from the jump. And they're like, well, if they could do it, I could do it. Not realizing that there were 865 rough drafts. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
you don't see all that background work.
Yeah, I always love it, and I've seen this happen several times where, like this happened in the UA stuff, where I've heard someone be like, well, why don't they just do the rules like this? And then like Perkins or Crawford go, well, we did this thing, and it didn't work.
Yeah, it was bad.
Me going, oh, what crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, if you had the idea as a layman who game design is not your job, they probably had that idea at some point. They probably had a similar thought. So there's a good chance they at least considered it. You know, like, you can take that into account. And this is a big one too to keep in mind when you're homebrewing, you know, it's just you. Most published games, not all of them, there's a lot of indie games out there, but a lot of published games, there's a team, and basically all published games went through a playtesting period where they had other people look at the product, and then other people offered their ideas and advice to the product. So they had a hive mind. Well, a hive mind sounds bad, but they had multiple brains, a think tank, going into the game that you're now playing. Especially if you're looking at a game like D&D, which has a lot of employees. There's a lot of people whose thoughts and energy went into it. You homebrewing at home, you got yourself, and maybe you could consider your players in your campaign playtesters. That's it. And that is worth keeping in mind, because having 100 playtesters go through your game helps you design the game a lot. And you probably don't have access to that. If you do have access to that, that's fucking sick, dog. Make a game then, at that point.
Yeah, if you've got that much R&D available to you,
make the fucking game.
Run it. Yeah, run that shit back. But I don't think you do.
So there's what I'm getting at is there's lots of different factors to consider. That's the crux of what I'm getting at. And when you go to start hacking your game and going ballistic, think about those factors at least a little bit. Just a little bit. Again, you could say, fuck it, we ball, and ignore all of those factors if you want to. You absolutely can. But at least just think about them, just to put your mind in that headspace. At least consider it.
For us.
And for your players, really. Really, for your players, at least consider it.
Yeah.
That's a big one, because at the end of the day, nothing is going to be more disappointing than if you come to the table with this homebrew that you've made, that you spent all this time on, and then it hits the campaign and your players use it and they are fucking miserable because you didn't consider X, Y, or Z problem, and your hacking homebrew thing, your combat subsystem that's going to completely rework how magic works fucking sucks and your players hate it and now they're miserable. That is the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Try to avoid at all costs.
Yeah. I mean, you should experience it at least once just to know that pain, but after that, yeah.
It is a fucking pain, let me tell you. You make a whole ass system or whatever and your players are like, this is dog shit. They're not going to tell you, they're not going to say that to you, but you'll feel it.
Know.
You'll know.
Yeah.
It'll be in the air.
They just won't interact with it ever, and then you bring it up and they're like, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're sad.
You just gotta, you're like
You just have a heart attack and keel over in your chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of rambling, but yeah, that's what I got.
It's fine.
I got in a rambly mood.
No, you're good. You're good. Give us some good padding.
Yes.
So now we're at it now. We're at a perfect place.
I wasn't necessarily padding. I was just, the rambling started to flow in my brain.
It's all good, bud. It's all good.
Happens.
I will take that. Those are your closing thoughts.
Yes.
Perfect. Then yeah. With that, that'll be us. Like and subscribe. Give us a follow on. Oh no, not the bird app.
Not the bird.
Blue Sky. Follow us on Blue Sky.
Blue Sky, the butterfly one.
Yeah, and you actually shoot us a comment and just like any particular homebrew rules that you are particularly fond of that you made yourself. Like, don't just give us the. Oh God, what was the big one that XP level 3 did that a lot of people use?
XP to level 3 did.
He had like a video where he did like the home rules he does in his game, and then like for like 6 months, it's all people would do.
One specific rule he did?
Yeah. Oh God,
I don't remember.
Should have. Regardless, give us homebrew rules that you guys came up with. They might not be original necessarily. But
I would love to see comments of fucking trash ass homebrew you made that you threw out. Give me that dog shit.
Or that, or
those are funnier.
What are some homebrew rules that you've had to play a game with and been like, nah, dog, this ain't it?
Yeah, give me that garbage.
If we get enough of those, we can do a shit take about it, and I'd love to do that.
Oh, that would be very funny. I would love to see that. Damn, now I want that really bad, actually.
Yeah. Scratch all that shit. Give us comments about the shittiest homebrew you've had to use in games that you've played in.
Yeah. That's funnier.
That is funnier. All right.
In the words
Peace,
of Geese Howard, die forever. That means goodbye.
Yep.